Welcome back to Puerto in Mallorca. We've just had one great race with Brunello winning, getting themselves up to second place in the leaderboard. Second for Prevetsa takes them up to the top of the table. We're going to join Jenny Tulloch out on the water as we prepare for the second race of the day. Jen, how's it looking?
.1 minute to go, 1:13 in fact, and this fleet setting up towards the race committee's end of the line. We've got all 9 boats just behind me where I am in position right next to the race committee boat, and it is going to be a very tight battle again. I think furthest right, Ron Racing is still on port tack, sailing even further away, now inside of 1 minute. Quantum Racing out to the far right as well. Brunello third up from the right, possibly going to be able to squeeze in again, just as they did last time, right at the boat, right at the gun, but a much tighter battle here for the rest of the fleet. Azura as well, looking like they have good positioning to be at the gun at 40 seconds from now. Prevetsa, as you said, the overall leaders. Then to the left of Prevetsa, Platoon, Sled, Gladiator, and trying to win the pen, Allegre again. 26 seconds to go. Boats just creeping towards the start line. And I absolutely think we'll have at least 3 boats here locked out at the committee boat. 18 seconds to go. Those 3 boats out behind me. Ron Racing, Quantum, and Brunello. If Azura lets them in, then they'll get in. 10 seconds to go. Allegre accelerates. Bow down for them. Bow down for Gladiator. Bow down for Sled. Azura accelerating away. It's gonna allow Brunello in at the boat, and that is the gun. Those 6 boats on the line right now were at speed at the gun, and Brunello again 3 seconds late at the committee boat, choosing to tack out right away. This is how they won the last race, so maybe it's going to be good on them again. But I think Azura from the middle of the line had that earlier start, tacking away soon. Might be a better position for the Italians there, Andy.
Yeah, I think so. Just looking at Azura's early tack along with Brunello, not a good start then for Ran Racing. Nor Quantum, still second rank, really getting closed out of the windward. At the committee boat end, Nick.
Yeah, Azura, well, Brunello taking the same strategy as they did last time. Azura knowing that right side worked out for a lot of those boats in the last race. So they've been pretty quick today. So if they get out to that side and it is the better side, I wouldn't be too surprised to see them at the top and the winner market in the top 2 or 3 boats. But you see Prevetsa and Platoon tacking away now. You're going to probably see a lot of these guys extend a little bit just so they have a nice lane that they can stay on port for a long time, and then go ahead and tack and start heading towards the right side. So. But right now, definitely the little bit of pin bias it looks like on the virtual eye. So maybe maybe Brunello and Azura feeling a little bit of pressure, needing that right shift to come in later in order to get ahead. But yeah, definitely a little bit of left shift right now. Definitely a little bit of pin bias.
Platoon look good just now. Nice pressure, nice lane, I think. And they started well down towards the left end of the boat. Left end of the line, Jenny.
Yeah, I like that.
Dominated the day with the 1-1, but Platoon had a very solid 3-2 to be second for the day, and yet they were sort of not ever really obviously up there. They often are coming out of not a great start and getting onto a podium finish by the end. So for us to be talking about Platoon this early in a race might mean we see them take it, just because it's so easy for them to move through the fleet, whether it is speed or whether it is tactics or a good combination of the two. They always seem to be in the mix, and of course they are in the mix overall, but there are so many boats at the top of the table here, and it's still anyone's game.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, Quantum, Azura, and Platoon again on the same side of the race course. You'll probably see that for the rest of the event. But a little bit of a left shift or maybe some pressure for them in the middle there. Definitely Prevetsa and Platoon getting a little bit more lifted than the other boats around them, even than Gladiator and Allegre over on that left side. But definitely better to be on port tack right now, better to be a little bit towards the left side. So we'll look to see if that lasts for the rest of the upwind. If it does, and those boats on the left will be very happy. If it does not, then we might see Brunello and Azura get a little bit back into this race.
I'll be brave. I like Gladiator's position just now. I think they did quite a reasonable start, got out to the left early.
Yeah, they're a little bit closer than Allegra. Second boat farthest to the left there, just that underneath position, pretty strong. They waited a long time before they tacked onto port, trying to give themselves a little bit wider berth, not expecting the right to come in quite as hard as the other boats seem to think. So we'll see if that works out for them. Definitely working right now. We did see a little bit of bottom left work in the last race as well, and then the right came in quite a bit hard right at the end. So see if that trend continues on. It'll be interesting for sure.
But Jen, not looking quite as good for Brennanasek this time. Certainly not paying the way it did with the early right last time.
Very last time they were able to actually kind of get in there right at the start. This time they very much so were about 4 or 5 seconds late. So I think the advantage to Azura, the advantage that we can see at the current moment, is just the aftermath of that 5
seconds earlier start for Azura. Azura
Absolutely.
actually 4 away at the line on time, got to accelerate, and then they kind of left a tiny hole for Brennanasek to come in afterwards. But that's given them at least a small 1 boat length advantage. But it doesn't really look like Brennanasek necessarily has a great. They really want right hard. They could go into foot mode, give themselves some leverage from Azura, and kind of pull foul forward. And instead, we see them sort of sailing a VMG, maybe even high mode here, trying to stick up with Azura, stay up with the pack. And that might be more protective against, as you guys are talking about, a left side advantage on this race course.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, you definitely see the lift coming down. Brennanasek, Quantum, Azura all getting lifted a little bit there. You see Preveza now taking the lead on the virtual eye. Definitely a little bit of good pressure, a little bit of a left shift not for all the boats though. The guys on the left didn't quite get into that. Mostly the guys on the right, the boats on the right, getting that left shift and that little bit better pressure. So Allegri now taking the lead again, but very close between all of the boats. You Preveza there in second on the overall distances there in virtual eye. So even though they're very far away from each other. But yeah, for sure, Azura getting punched out in that start a little bit. They haven't been quite on the pace. Maybe that's because of that left shift. Maybe it's because of a little bit of pressure that Platoon, Preveza, and Sled got there in the middle. But Brennanasek taking a big risk. You can see them definitely in foot mode. They've definitely sort of lost a little bit on Azura over this upwind. That could be because Azura's in high mode trying to get rid of Quantum there. But for sure, the guys that are, the boats that are a little bit farther towards the left side are gaining more and more as this race goes on. Ren Racing taking a little bit of a risk out there after that start that they had. They're happy with this left pressure gaining a little bit for them, but still pretty far behind. Going to be really hard for them to pick a spot coming in when we get on to the close to the starboard ley line. Going to be very difficult for them to find clear air and hard for them to find a nice spot on that ley line. But looks like they're actually ahead of Brennanasek now, even though they started several seconds behind them. So definitely that bottom right not working out. I'm not going to call the left as favored right now, but I think it's just where Azura, Quantum, and Brennanasek are down there is just a little bit lighter breeze or a little bit less of a shift that they've got going. That pack in the middle with Preveza, Platoon, and Sled slowly gaining on the rest of the fleet.
You know I said earlier I didn't like Brennanasek's mode. I think they figured out whatever the problem was. I think recently we're seeing them going much better in comparison to Azura, just to windward of them. So either they've finally gone a little bit bow down, or they've just decided slightly more pressure out here. They're doing a bit better in this final last 10 boat lengths than what they were earlier.
So we see Sled again in a very similar position to where they were yesterday in those 2 races that they won. Sort of in the middle of the pack there, but nice clear lane, close to the guys to windward of them, putting the pressure on them, but definitely liking the spot that they're in, going quite fast. They've gained quite a bit of distance on the boats in front of them, but you can see in the virtual eye, starting to get a little bit headed. Preveza down from their max lift there. Ren also, staying a little bit in that left pressure, that left shear, gaining a little bit there. But Gladiator, Platoon certainly getting headed and feeling the pressure from the boats to lure to them now. So if he keeps going this right phase, then Brennanasek still not looking great, but could be looking a little bit better. Azura definitely liking the way that it's going. Quantum slowly falling into them. Their biggest threat for Azura is going to be Preveza to windward of them. They can't really tack on to starboard right now. They'll probably end up getting lee-bowed or sailing back into the rest of the fleet is going to be tough for them. So they're going to have to stick it out a little bit farther than the rest of the boats, most likely into that right side. But I'm sure that was their plan initially anyways, so I bet they're happy with it. What do you see out there, Jen? Is there a better pressure, a better shift on the right side again?
It's not as obvious a line anymore out here. I mean, in the last race, we had sort of 8 knots and then puffs to 10. Now that we've got this consistent dark water the whole way across, with white caps the whole way across, it's not as obvious to see something up here on the top right, and I don't know that it means that there's not something here. There might, in fact, be. There's definitely good breeze across the race course and good breeze out here on the right, but I'm not sure it's going to be such a huge advantage to these guys, or whether the middle left will ultimately pay off in this one.
Yeah, so Quantum, the first boat to tack away and peel out of here, definitely feeling the pressure from Azura there, but you can see on the lines here, a lot of them, especially Azura, Brennensek, even Preveza, are getting a little bit of a right shift, but the rest of the boats still staying high on port, even maybe getting lifted a little bit. They're approaching leyline here, so it's going to start getting those battles. Quantum trying to make that gain in the top left there. You'll probably see them continue on starboard for a long time and try to get in there late at the top, try to sneak into a spot on the left leyline, knowing they can take a little bit of risk since they're already behind. So Preveza and Allegre, tight battle for the lead. Platoon gaining a little bit too here, so they must be going pretty fast. Sled as well. Those guys have been going upwind well in the last couple of races. For sure, Allegre happy with where they are now, considering how they've been doing in the races previously. They do have among the older boat, an older boat design of the fleet, I believe, so they have been struggling for speed recently. Just taking a little bit more risk, definitely on that port end, trying to stay away from the pack. They know that they can't quite hang necessarily. They don't have all of the modes accessible to them like boats like Azura and Quantum will. But some smart tactics out there and just trying to be able to go fast when they can. Definitely liking that left sheer that they've got going on.
So Brennensek's just tacked in from the right-hand corner. I think absolutely not laying the middle pack of 3 boats. They're not going to be ahead of Sled, possibly not even laying Quantum next time around. But the Italians, Azura, still continuing out to the right. I was going to make a comment earlier about Brennensek. I'll go ahead with it, even though I'm not sure we can see it from here. But Simon Dobney, who's a long-time amazing trimmer, who's an America's Cup winner as well, he was sitting in next to the main trimmer and the driver, and he went down and adjusted the jib once, and then I thought he'd go and take his side on the high side, and he absolutely did not. He just stayed sitting in, whereas Azura, for sure, when they are racing in a straight line, has everybody on the side except the main trimmer and the driver. So clearly they think it's breezy enough to be powered up enough. They need all their weight hiking that they can get out. Azura just tacking back towards the middle here. Preveza just face planting Azura. Now Platoon will be the next question mark for Preveza. I think Platoon is going to be crossing
Probably
here.
Crossing, yeah.
Whether they tack and slam one on Preveza or not. Yes, tacking and slamming one on Preveza. So 2 boats very much at the top of the leaderboard here, fighting each other. We're going to see these little battles again, but Platoon tacking on Preveza forces Preveza back out. Sled has just ducked Preveza, so Sled going to be able to make it through Preveza's bow air. I think Preveza a little bit slow out of that tack. They've got Sled right underneath them, so they can't really put their bow down and accelerate. Well, in the middle, just underneath Platoon, Allegre lee bowed Platoon, but Allegre, it was a distant lee bow. I think Platoon will be able to live there.
Yeah, Platoon showing some great speed here on the upwind. Definitely just in that same pack as everybody else, but slowly gaining meter by meter on the upwind, and now suddenly in the lead. In a great spot to continue that. They can, if they don't quite hold on Allegre there, then they can tack back and just hit another time on Preveza or on Sled, whichever one is closer at the time. If they can live on Allegre, then they'll be very happy to take that very close to ley line and just play it safe. Gladiator making some gains out by just extending away from those fights that everybody's got. Looks like they're pretty close to ley line. Probably going to see Gladiator, duck, Platoon, and Allegre here and just try to get right in front of Preveza there. Just trying to make it hard on them. But Brennensek gaining quite a bit through the fleet right now. Looks like they have put some distance on Azura and Quantum Racing as well. 2 teams that were for sure behind.
I think, unfortunately, though, Brennensek has just been lee bowed by Gladiator, so I'm not sure then if Brennensek's going to be able to live there or if Gladiator's taking their line and they're going to have to take another hitch up. It's a really tight battle between those 2 now. Gladiator has about half a boat length out of maybe a quarter of a boat length out of windward advantage to Brennensek. You can just see their mast sticking out from the bow of Brennensek, but Brennensek going fully into hype mode now, trying to give themselves a little bit of breathing room from Gladiator. So I think, as you're saying, they're probably ley line here and they want to be able to live.
Really, there's absolutely nothing in it. I mean, for me, I think the best position probably Platoon just now.
Yeah, it depends on whether they are going to be on the ley line or not. Gladiator in a great spot if all those boats are laying, but it looks like they might be just under ley line. If so, the first boat to the most lured boat who is still laying is going to be in the best spot for sure here. But definitely looking like it's. It looks like we just started shooting 2 minutes after the start. You know, these boats are extremely close still, all lined up, sort of doing. Almost looks like they're just testing their speeds upwind, and incredible to see them this close after full upwind.
We're looking forward to a very tight and exciting windward mark.
Yeah, it looks like Platoon's dropped back a little bit on Allegre. Allegre, even though they didn't have the greatest lee bow on Platoon, definitely affecting them just a little bit, enough to squeak ahead on the virtual eye there. Preveza gaining a little bit. Looks like there's still some more pressure on the right side. We thought that Gladiator was going to be able to come across and be in front, but it looks like they actually had to leave out Brennensek, and we're not even crossing them. So that's quite surprising. Brennensek coming back very good through the fleet. Azura going to be suffering here most likely in the bad air of Preveza as they go low. I think it looks like Preveza's a little bit overlaid, so probably in a low mode here. I'm going to roll over the top of Azura and make their lives really, really hard. So look to see Brennensek, Gladiator, and Quantum Racing make a little bit of a gain on Azura here as they come up to the windward mark.
So Jen, talk us into the windward mark. Allegre with a very small lead according to Virtual.
Yeah, very small lead. We're still about 20 boat lengths from the weather mark, but Allegre has absolutely pulled out from Platoon over the last minute and a half. I think Platoon, unfortunately, just hard to hang on that windward hip. They're still trying to hang on the windward hip, which makes me think they don't think any longer that they have a lee bow on Preveza, or perhaps they think they can scrape this ley line by anyway. But Platoon crossing at the moment. Quantum Racing, and just above Quantum Racing is Gladiator, just crossing behind the sterns of Platoon. So underneath Allegre, to my eye, I can't see them at the current moment, but it should still be Brennensek. And Platoon is slamming a lee bow on Gladiator. They're actually facing Gladiator. So Platoon coming back out, taking one more hitch. They didn't think they would lay. They are going to duck Preveza here. So Preveza making a big gain there for Platoon. And in front of them, Allegre has tacked as well. So they were not ley line either, but they are lee bowing Preveza. So Allegre possibly still for the lead here if they can keep their momentum and then take their height up to Preveza, and then kind of hung out too dry on the left-hand side. Brennensek just coming into the tack now. I think hoping that the fleet opens up a little bit here. The starboard tackers give them some hole to come into, but it is going to be a really, really, really hard battle for Ray Davies to navigate the blue bow number 5 in through that pack. I think starboard ley line really setting up well, but at the current moment it looks like they are crossing Azura on board Brennensek, and I think maybe they will have that spot just behind Allegre. In fact, just underneath Preveza. If they're lucky, Brennensek will pull out a third place on this one. But as it is, Allegre about half a boat length just shy of the ley line to me. They're probably going to have to shoot it at the very end at the last minute. They're holding tight for that. And just behind Allegre, yes, they've made it. They've just pinched it in off to the last second there and rounding in first place. That's bow 19, Allegre, the British flagged boat who I don't think has had a great regatta so far. In fact, they're sitting in 9th on the overall leaderboard. But they've pulled it off now. Behind them, Preveza, the guy's currently at the top of the leaderboard. And Brennensek comfortably finding that hole for the 3rd place position. They were able to just cross the bow of sled and tack no problem. So no fouls, no flags flown. So leading now is Allegre. 2nd is Preveza. 3rd, Brennensek. 4th place, I believe, sled, the white-hulled boat, and 5th place, Gladiator. You can see the G and the red shirts. And then it's quite a tight fight and battle there. I think Azura coming around in 6th. Outside of Azura, Ron Racing. Inside of Azura, I believe Platoon. And just behind, taking the sterns of all of those 3 boats, is Quantum Racing, just luffing for the top mark here.
Yeah.
But a very, very tight battle in the back.
Quantum flying a flag saying that Platoon didn't quite give them enough room, so there'll be an umpire call in the next few moments here. But definitely a very tight rounding for them there. Surprised to see Quantum ending up in last year and Rand catching up quite a bit.
Much the same position they were in the previous race, although this time they made it, but coming in very tight ley lines.
Yeah, very tight ley lines and a very tight group here. I don't see any umpire flags flown, so I think it was probably just a green flag. Quantum trying a bit too hard to pull a foul there. The fleet, though, for the first time, not a single jibe setter. Everybody on starboard tack, everyone just normal set, bear away. And even the guys in the back, it doesn't look like anyone's setting up for a jibe set. So finally, for once, deciding the left-hand side of the race course on that upwind was a gainer and will be a gainer again on the downwind.
Yeah, so interesting to see Sled and Platoon have a little bit more pace than everybody else did on that upwind. They sort of were not in the greatest spots and ended up catching up quite a bit. Brennensek squeaking in there for sure. They looked like they were really deep, but made a good gain on, certainly saw the lift on starboard tack more than everybody else did and sailed a little bit out of starboard tack while the rest of the fleet was on port. Gained quite a bit on the upwind there and snuck in on that port tack ley line like we were talking about, but very high risk for them. Again, you see the high risk that we saw in the last race with that start as well, working out for them pretty well. And Gladiator, you know, being pretty conservative there, actually ended up making it really hard on Quantum, and that's part of the reason that Quantum is so deep is because they were right in the way there. So Brennensek coming in very, very exciting fashion, very high risk fashion to get into third place there. But definitely Platoon and Sled showing some pace. Platoon getting pushed back a little bit in the fleet, just from some bad tactical calls on the ley line, a little bit of you know, tacking on the right place, but then getting rolled and not quite making that ley line, having to do a double tack, and then not being in the right spot for the rest of the upwind. But yeah, so it looks like on a virtual eye that might be the reason that they're all sort of staying on starboard is because it's a whole lot more starboard jibe on this downwind than there will be port jibe. What do you see out there, Jen?
Yeah, I think that's fair. We have a much bigger left shift than we've seen at all day today. So probably finally getting the breeze slightly more towards the 180, 175 Palma wind direction instead of the 200 that we've been set up for these first two, well, I guess for the first race and this first upwind of the second race. And again, the points at the top of the table, so tight right now. Preveza leading with 24 points, but the next three teams in a row tied on 26. That's Brennensek, Platoon, and Quantum Racing. And then two teams tied just 1 point behind that, Round Racing and Azura. And of course, the guys who won both races yesterday, Sled, just 1 point back of that. So it is only 4 points from first place to seventh place. It's an amazing, amazing regatta so far. It's the tightest one I think probably we've ever seen. It's definitely the tightest that I can remember. And I think at the current moment, Preveza showing fine form by being second in this race. They'll continue with their lead if they can hold off this second place.
Yeah, Preveza showing nice and consistent today. They've been in the middle of both starts, just getting off the line pretty well, going quick upwind. Being in the right spots. Surprised they actually didn't end up rounding that mark in first. They looked very good on the upwind, but they sailed through a little bit of a lull and sort of had to maneuver their way, but did end up gaining a little bit again on the deep right side by that ley line. Almost looked like they took the lead again, but Allegre getting a nice lee bow on them right at the windward mark. So, you know, good positioning for them. They seem to figure out what the wind's been doing when it's not quite so left favor like you're used to here in the Bay of Palma, but they've definitely got it figured out there on board Preveza and going, you know, pretty good speed upwind and downwind. You haven't really seen them make too many mistakes and just let the other guys mess up and be in the wrong spots, and they take advantage of that.
So as ever, if you've got any questions about this race, about the 52s, about the 52 Super Series in general, post them on our Facebook page or on Twitter, and we'll come back to you as quickly as we possibly can. But Allegri looking quite good there. Good day for Preveza so far, leading the regatta.
Yeah, so similar to what we saw in Port Jibe with a lot of them, a lot of the boats sort of deciding whether they're going to sail high mode, low mode, looking for the lane back on the opposite jibe to get back to the marks. See Gladiator sailing a little bit lower of a mode than Platoon and Ran behind. That is most likely because Platoon and Ran are in a little bit of a fight there for their own clear air, but Gladiator not upset about that fight in any way, as they slowly sort of gain some distance to leeward of those two boats and are going to like the ability to jibe early and have some clear air on port jibe back into the mark. So it's a good spot for them to be in.
I think that fight's actually Platoon and Quantum Racing right now on the right-hand side. The only boat that's jibed on the race course miles ago, and I think unfortunately, it looks like a big loss to me, but that was Ran Racing. They were the first to jibe early on, and they've gone to the right side of the race course. And I don't know how it looks on the virtual eye, but from here it looks like they're going to be coming back really far behind the rest of this pack.
Yeah, it's not looking. I think there's a little bit of lag on the virtual eye. Quantum looks like they're in last place there, and I think maybe it's just a little bit behind what the actuality is there.
So the second two boats now jibing out. It's Prevetsa, the first from the lead pack to jibe, choosing a good time there because they do have 4 boats very tight behind them. If Bernenesek or Sled or Gladiator had chosen to go with them, they would have a little bit of a battle to try to get clear air there, so instead jibing a bit early, whereas Allegre just about a 5 boat length lead from Bernenesek. Allegre has a bit more breathing room when they decide to jibe. If someone jibes on their breeze, they'd be able to pull off and find an open spot pretty easily. And then the very tight battle to my eye is Sled, Gladiator, and I actually can't even see the boat on the outside. They're so lined up well with Sled to me here that it's hard to see who it is.
Yeah, looking like a little bit of a gain to Ran down that left side, looking downwind perhaps. Went round the leeward mark in 7th. We see them up to 5th.
Yeah, definitely. As we look at the angles on the virtual eye, it looks like they're getting a little bit of a right shift as they move down this course. So the guys that are driving on support are going to make early gains. But if it continues to go in that trend, then we'll see the boats that drive later are going to gain the most in this downwind. If that is really what's going on with the breeze, is a little bit of a right shift, and probably if it's more of a classic day out there, then a little bit more pressure most likely on that right side looking downwind. So what do you see out there, Jen?
Well, the 3 boats that I was just talking about, it's Platoon on the outside, Sled, and Gladiator. They've all just jibed again on each other. So kind of a bit of a tent effect here. There's such a big pack of 6 boats, even in counting Allegre, Bernenesek, and Quantum Racing. And I think with these 6 boats, the wind has to go over them. It's meaning they're all having a lot less pressure than the guys who've broken away. So early on, it could be gains to Ran Racing just because they're very much by themselves out there in their own little playing fields. And then in the middle of the race course, Prevetsa and I believe Azura also pretty clear coming back in the middle here. So I think we could see big gains just from those 3, just from having really, really clear air. It is again phasing in and out, and we're now on the down phase of it. So we had nice breeze for the first half of this downwind, but now as we get into the second half, it's dying off a bit. Not really as many white caps anymore, probably only about 9 or 10 knots now. So everyone moving back into their light air positions. You can see on board Allegre at the current moment, they've got 6 guys on the leeward side, in fact, of their boat, not even hiking to windward anymore. So very quickly into this setup for the light air mode. It'll just be about who made those transitions better and also who was able to hold the pressure down the fleet the longest. But I do think probably Allegre should still lead at the bottom marks.
Yeah, Prevetsa coming in on top on the virtual eye here. Looks like they're just a little bit faster. It could either be a high mode or just like they're in a little bit more pressure there. But definitely looks like Ran Racing coming out very well from that left side looking downwind there. Bernenesek again going to the corners there. They certainly have liked to be on the edges of the race course. So both edges seeming to pay off a little bit here. The boats in the middle definitely losing. Like you said, maybe taking a little bit of that breeze away from each other, making it a little bit harder. So Ran Racing, huge gain on the downwind for them. Great call on the shifts there. Looks like they sailed a good amount of headers on the downwind. So good for them, but they are definitely coming in very close to the leaders now, what it looks like on virtual eye, and even close to coming to being ahead of Bernenesek.
I think Allegre as well. Well, I said they were far enough ahead that they should be able to jibe and stay clear. They have, it's like a wall of the 3 boats behind them of Sled, Gladiator, and Platoon. And so, unfortunately, I think for that last 20 boat lengths, they basically were sailing underneath that wall. They couldn't head up anymore. They head up right into it. And if they'd bored away too much, it was such light air that they would have just gone much slower than BMG. And so I think for a long period of time there, they were just in a really tough spot. I think actually now, those 3 boats behind, first of all, Gladiator has jibed, and secondarily, the breeze has started to fill back in a little bit. So those guys sailed higher to get to the breeze, and now Prevetsa Allegre actually able to sail low as this puff has come down. But I think big losses to that who was the original leader, as what we see from the right side looking upwind. Preveza leads Ron racing in. Preveza might have just made some huge gains there.
Yeah, for sure. With the pressure is going to help Preveza get down in front of Allegre. Allegre, again, with the older hull shape, I think it's a little bit more difficult for them to get going in a great mode downwind. So, but you see a lot of action back in the back pack. Gladiator jibed away as Azura crossed Platoon, I believe, and then jibed on top of them. So some action going on there. Azura jibing away again as Platoon rolls over the top of them. So that will be very close coming into the bottom mark rounding there.
Same mold.
The Gladiator electing to jibe in front of Quantum here, thinking that they're probably going to be clear ahead of Azura, or maybe just giving themselves a little bit of time so that if they do get jibed on top of again, they can take another hitch out and not overlay the ley line there. So interesting move by them, a nice little tactical spot where they have given themselves options in case things happen. We might see Azura jibe on top of them, might see Azura try to go and jibe inside and try to get inside on the right-hand mark looking downwind. So a lot of tactical setups here. I think it looks like Gladiator jibing back in front of Azura, so they definitely showing that they're going to want to round that right-hand gate looking downwind and go out to the left side on the upwind.
Meanwhile, in the front of the pack, Nick, we've got Preveza has just come through and been jibed on by Allegre, but Allegre they couldn't quite place their jibe forward of Preveza, so Allegre, while trying to jibe on them, ended up sort of on their stern quarter, so Preveza has pulled into the lead in this race. Brunelesek coming in from what was the right side on the downwind, I think will maintain this third position, just crossing behind Allegre now, but whether or not they can stay ahead of Ron Racing, who's made a huge move from what was an 8th place to up to, we're talking about possibly 3rd even with Brunelesek. Meanwhile, Preveza getting around the bottom marks now. The kite comes down on board the Turkish boat. They will choose the right-hand mark, the right turn, and going up the left side of the race course. So it worked out for them on the first upwind. It's working out again here for Preveza. Allegre following in also will do a right turn to the left-hand side of the race course, while Brunelesek has just crossed the bow of Ron Racing. I think they were inside the zone, so it was an interesting scenario, but they are choosing to go to this other mark coming to the right-hand side of the course, which again was where they picked on the first upwind and where they picked last race where they won the race. So no surprise there for the blue boat, rounding to the side, the right side, just as the Swedish boat, Ron Racing, rounds to the left. Swedes deciding left-hand side of the course along with the leaders. And then Sled, good gains I think on that downwind for Sled, coming in now, rounding to the right along with Brunelesek in 5th position. So from the front to back, it was Preveza winning, Allegre 2nd, Brunelesek and Ron Racing tied 3rds, Sled in 4th, and rounding now Platoon in 5th place. Coming to the right-hand side, just behind Sled and Brunelesek. On the far side, Azura in 6th place, the Italian boat. And then just behind, with a slight loss on that downwind, Gladiator with the red kite just coming down now. And a very, very, very tough downwind for the Americans on Quantum Racing, dropping back into last place.
Yeah, well, they started the downwind in last place after they threw a flag against Platoon. Didn't quite call the ley line and got rolled by most of the fleet. So tough race for them, but they did come back in the last one from a very similar position. So we'll see what they can do on this next upwind. But Ran Racing for sure, the winner of that downwind, gaining, I believe it was 3 boats on the downwind. They definitely
7th to 3rd or 4th, depending.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 boats on a single downwind again for them. That's a very big gain. Definitely made that happen by going a little bit farther to the now right side looking upwind. So they jibed early onto port and got away from the fleet. Might have been speed, might have been getting away from the fleet. Maybe there's some better pressure out there. So I
think it's probably a combination of all 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to hit the right side on this upwind if that worked out for them on the downwind.
So Jen, how's this beat looking? We're just watching Brunelesek having made their tack, going back towards the left on starboard.
Yeah, and I think perhaps this is the first time we've seen Brunelesek sail away from the right side of the course so early. I do think possibly a little bit of a right shift here. We've got good pressure bottom right now, but we know the top left did pay off a little bit earlier, a little bit later on the first upwind. So Brennanasek taking some sterns here of the 2 leaders of Allegre and Preveza, but maybe hoping for a gain later on. Out on the right now, furthest right, is Sled, and Sled could possibly make some advantages here. They've got plenty of leverage on the 2 leaders. They're now getting plenty of leverage on Brennanasek, who's sailing through the middle of the pack. And I wouldn't be surprised if the right does end up working out again. I'm not sure about Brennanasek. They're crossing all the way across to the left now. They're sailing behind the bad air of the 2 leaders of Preveza and Swedish boat Ran. So now they're just crossing behind Allegre as well on the far side. So a very big change there to decide to go from rounding the right mark and liking the right to crossing the fleet while everyone else is on port tack, the only boat on starboard tack. I'm not really sure what Ray Davies is choosing there.
Yeah, we're just looking at the drone footage. Certainly the boats to the left seem to be sailing a higher angle on this port tack. It may just be the lens on the drone, but certainly the likes of we're seeing Sled in the bottom, or the forefront of our picture, sailing a slightly lower angle than the boats way up to the left. So there may be some lefty coming in from Cabo Blanco.
Yeah, we saw that same thing on the first upwind. Those left boats sort of middle right paid the best, and exactly where Preveza's setting up their boat again now. Allegre as well ran in a good spot. Saw a little bit of better pressure right there, a little bit of left shear for at least the first half of this upwind, and then you'll look to see all those boats start to get headed towards the right side of things. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes through. Most likely that breeze is just oscillating, so if they're up on a lift on port, then all the boats are going to want to be on port. You know, Brennanasek tacking back up there as well, so we'll look to see those boats get headed a little bit up the course here, and then decide how long they want to go into that right shift, and that will be the next move for these guys. It'll be a long time on port for all these boats. So Jen, the virtual is showing a lot of port tack again on the upwind here.
Yeah, and I think perhaps that's why Ray Davies has decided with Brennanasek to go starboard tack early. If you think it's finally going to go left, as in this is a consistent left shift, then you sail whatever starboard tack you can as early as possible, so it's not the worst header at the end of it. And I think maybe if we're thinking it was such a long starboard downwind, then it was a left shift already. If it's now such a long port tack upwind, it's continuing to be a left shift. So you might just be thinking, if you're Ray or if you're this fleet, that yeah, it's finally going left. It's going to go left hard, so let's take our starboard tack early, and then let's get even more left advantage there. And I think we saw them take the stern of Ron Racing, who they'd rounded simultaneous with, but they're looking to make the gains down the track later on. Again, if you're Sled and you're the guys going out to the right side, Platoon and Gladiator, maybe they haven't made that decision yet. Maybe they're just thinking port tack is up right now, but another righty's coming later on, so we'll wait for that righty and we'll tack onto starboard. And I think it's kind of one of the first times we've seen just one tactician sailing away from the rest of the course. Although maybe on day one it was also Brennanasek making that same call, Andy, if you remember.
Yeah, they definitely in that first day with the abandoned race, they were definitely all the way to one side. They seem to like to be on one side of the fleet, whether that be all the way on the right side or all the way on the left side. I'm not really sure why that is, but maybe they are trusting a little bit in their speed and don't want to get too involved in the fights in the middle for clear air. So definitely going up and staying close to the fleet, so if there is any leverage that ends up favoring those right boats, they're not going to lose quite as much as if they went all the way to the side there. But for sure a risk from where the position they were in. They should have been pretty happy with third, going out to the same side that had worked on both the first upwind and on the first downwind.
So then Preveza were on board with them just now.
Probably seeing a big smile on Tony Ray's face at the moment.
He's looking out to windward, calling the breeze coming in. We see the very large hat of Nacho Postigo there, using the hand-bearing compass. The wizard of Palma Bay, very much in tune with the conditions, I think. Doing a very, very good job today. As I said a few times, that Preveza really have struggled in the final days. In a few regattas they've led into the final day, and they've had problems. Problems I think if I remember in Key West in particular, led into the final day and then had problems on the last start. They missed the start on the pin end, had to bail out, and that cost them pretty much cost them the regatta. And then also in Puerto after Quantum had their problems, then Preveza had the chance of winning the regatta, and this shackle on the attack downhole on the kite exploded or didn't or opened, and that cost them the regatta as well. So Preveza strengthening their hand just now, and this may be the place that they can close out a regatta win. They were my prediction at the beginning of the week, I have to say.
Yeah, Platoon attacking away here. I was about to make a comment on the fact that they were staying behind sled.
That's so far a 6-1-7-3-5-2. So pretty much consistently around maybe 4 points, I guess, between 6-1-7-3-5-2. And again, they're only 2 points clear at the current moment of a three-way tie for second place between Brunellesec, Platoon, and Quantum, and then just 2 more boats behind that on 1 point back. So such close racing here, but Preveza, they will be putting a stamp on it today if they're able to get a second and then a first. But then again, we will probably still continue to have that third race this afternoon. The breeze is looking really nice, really solid, and not too shifty to not allow us to get that third race.
Yeah, so you look at the virtual eye with the projected points table up here. Preveza getting a nice little lead. That will be, I believe, the biggest lead, tie for the biggest lead of the regatta so far, if they do end up finishing in the way the boats are sort of panned out right now. But still, the rest of the regatta very close. Anybody's game for sure. Only 10 points between 7th and 1st, if this is how it ends up. But definitely still close. All these boats for sure able to win a race or win the regatta, or finish anywhere in between. So. You see Gladiator attacking away now. Looks like a lot of those boats down there, definitely Preveza and Alegre, looks like they're getting a little bit headed here, maybe a little bit less pressure, but the righty's starting to fade in a little bit there for them. So Quantum falling a little bit farther behind, all the way out there on the left. So this will be the interesting place to see Brunellesec and see if that early attack onto starboard really is going to pay out for them. I'm not sure that it is. Looks like the right is fading in just a tiny bit. To these boats, especially Preveza and Ran Racing and Alegre, seeing a little bit of a header here. What do you think out there, Jen?
Yeah, I don't even see Brunellesec really in my eyesight anymore, and I think if they were making big gains on the left, we'd see them much more even with this fleet here. Instead, I think maybe it looks like they've dropped back, possibly even behind the Italian. Preveza, followed by Ran Racing and Sled, have all just tacked onto starboard. Sled actually was the one who led the tack. They've just been face planted by Ron, who just tacked above Preveza's line, and so Sled's actually now having to tack back again. We're just seeing the beginnings of this fight for this ley line. I think probably that's first blood to Ron, making Sled do 2 extra tacks there. Sled just finishing their clearing tack now, tacking back onto starboard tack, and very close to this ley line. So Preveza might have even called it from this far out. Maybe they'll have to do 2 more right at the end. Just underneath both Preveza and Ran Racing is Alegre, who had led around the top mark, who just had a bad downwind sitting underneath some bad air of 3 other boats. And I think Alegre will get to choose when they want to tack up towards Ran Racing. And I think at this point they have quite clear breeze on Preveza. And yet if they come up and try to plant a lee bow on Ran, and yet they're too early, they might be putting themselves right into the bad air of Preveza. So I think we could expect to see Alegre go as long as they can before tacking back onto port tack. Whereas the rest of the fleet, almost everyone bar Gladiator coming back on port now. And it does look like, yes, we can see Brunellesec. They're just to windward of Platoon, but Platoon is bow forward. So Platoon's made some gains there, Brunellesec some losses, and Azura just behind both of them, tacking up into the middle.
Yeah, still incredibly tight here as we keep going on the second upwind here. Looks like Platoon's probably going to be able to get rid of Brunellesec by ley line. If not, then certainly when they attack, they'll roll over the top. But yeah, gonna be interesting here. I believe Alegre, like you said, is going to stick out there, try to stay on starboard for as long as they can, hoping Preveza is not making that mark and is going to have to tack back and maybe do some damage on the boats behind them and let Alegre slip in there. So it'll be interesting to see the tactics there. Preveza's on ley line, they'll certainly stay on starboard. If not, you might see them start to take a hitch up to Ran soon. Alegre definitely losing a little bit to that deep right. We've seen the top right in this race course work almost every leg in the last yesterday and today. So certainly ran, making some gains out there. Sled as well. Platoon and Brennenisek looking to make the same gains. And, you know, Gladiator, Brennenisek certainly losing from the left side. Gladiator in a tough spot, but maybe hoping that left side is going to work out for them. And Quantum Racing coming in very deep still, not able to make the same comeback as they were in the previous race. You know, left side did not work out for them too much. But, you know, they're not too upset about it because Azura and Platoon, again, are back there with them. So not too many points giving up for the overall series. But they'll certainly be hoping they're going to have a better next race if there is another one, or at least a better day tomorrow.
So in the meantime, a very quick couple of questions from Facebook and from Twitter. First from Bill Wingrove. I think, what are the ages of the boats? Well, the newest boat in the fleet is a Gladiator, which was formerly Interlodge. That was built and launched in November last year, and new for the beginning of this season. It was previous Interlodge, then it became Gladiator. So it's the newest boat. And then the rest of the boats are all built in 2015 season, the start of the 2015 or winter going into 2015, and all launched. There was 9 boats were launched that season, so they're all 2015. As and when new boats are built, then we're expecting some through this winter coming. The number is still to be decided. And the other question from Bill was how close has this regatta been in the past? Well, the last regatta was won by 10, or last time we sailed here it was won by 10 points, which was by Quantum Racing, and in 2015 it was won by 14 points by Azura when they won the World Championship, and in both times they went on to win the 52 Super Series. So we're on board with Pravetsa, Jen, as they come round the top bark.
Yeah, Pravetsa has extended their lead over what is now second place Ron Racing. So Pravetsa continuing to be in first place both overall and in this second race of the 4th day. But the Swedish boats, Ron Racing, making some big moves, going from 7th around the first top mark to second now at the second top mark. An amazing job for them, as tacking into 3rd place position is Allegre. They were winning at the top mark originally. They've now dropped down to 3rd, both on the upwind and on the downwind. I think we're just seeing this right-hand side really pay. Just behind Allegre, 4th position goes to Sled at the current moment. They had a tough first race, finishing quite deep in the pack after winning both races yesterday. So they'll be happy to be in the mix here. And I think between 2nd and 4th, there's almost nothing in it. Between Ron Racing, Allegre, and Sled, any of those guys could cross the finish line in 2nd here. Then a very tight battle for who's 5th around the mark. It's Gladiator on the inside, and I think outside Platoon. Yes, Platoon on the outside, the Turkish boat. So Gladiator just sneaking in as the inside boat, just luffing Platoon a little bit there, sailing a bit of extra distance around the mark, and now bearing away and extending slightly forward. They'll probably be fully bow clear of Platoon by the time they get to the offset mark. Behind them there, another tight battle. Azura on the inside, the Italian boat, bow number 7, the lighter blue of the two colors, the outside, the Brennenisek, bow number 5. So Brennenisek, a really tough upwind there. They went from 2nd place or 3rd place around the bottom marks to fighting for 8th place. The only boat Brennenisek currently beating is Quantum Racing, who's bringing up the rear.
Yeah, so gains and losses on that upwind. Gladiator making a couple boat gains from the bottom mark. I believe they rounded in 8th, but now it looks like they are in 5th. So good gains for them, even though that bottom right didn't look great for them. I think they made most of their gains sort of top third of the upwind, maybe just getting a little bit away from... oh, wow, so
Allegre's got a kite problem.
Yeah, big problem on Allegre. They've got the kite down. I actually was going to mention that it looked like when they dropped their kite coming into the bottom mark that there was an issue as well. You saw the kite dragging in the water, but decided not to say anything about it. So maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe there was an issue then that they didn't quite notice, and when they put it up the next time, that there's just a problem there. So they're going to be a couple of seconds while they probably fish out another kite and try to hoist that one. But definitely going to be a big loss for them. They're going to be back there near Quantum, if not all the way in last after that.
They've just rehoisted now and just now filling, in fact. So they've had to sail a little bit high, but they are high right now around the outside of Gladiator Platoon. So a big loss from what was 3rd to now more like fighting for 5th, I think.
Yeah, but good recovery for them. Must not have been a fairly major problem if they were just able to make a quick fix on the same kite and just get it right back up there. So good on the crew work there on Allegre to get the kite back up and going. It looks like Virtual Eye has them in 4th now, so only a couple boat loss for them on what could have been something very major if it had happened maybe on the first downwind. So very great recovery for them, now putting the pressure on Gladiator behind. I'm sure they're just about on their air. So, but yeah, Bernenasek, big loser on that upwind, ran gaining quite a bit actually. You know, while Allegre's kite problems here definitely help Ran look better now, but Bernenasek big losers. Gladiator definitely winners on there. Quantum a little bit farther behind than where they started, so they're not liking the way they are right now. Azura also falling a little bit behind from the from that windward mark rounding that they had a nice close one there and barely made it around. So not great speed for them on the downwind as they try to fight for positioning with Gazprom threatening high and threatening to take the breeze away from them.
In the meantime, Provetsa looking reasonably comfortable. Question from Gordon Dundas on Twitter. Do you think there is demand for another type of course apart from windward, leeward courses? Well, we do obviously do coastal races, but I have to say that among the certain factions of the crews, they're becoming less and less popular, except in really classic coastal race territory like Costa Smeralda, for example. They're still quite popular, but in general, it's the windward, leeward courses which are preferred, and I think we'll see a higher percentage of windward, leeward courses versus coastal race courses. We are looking at changing the windward, leeward setup in Mahon, going to basically the same size of beat, but then a longer run, and then a run back down through a gate, and then back upwind, just to give some variation on the kind of standard format of this windward, leeward.
Yeah, that race course is actually able to be sailed at this regatta here. I don't think we're going to see it, but they tried to set it for the practice race.
Right, that's right.
So it would be a normal upwind leg, and then a longer downwind with the gates not being set just above the starting line, but actually about the same distance below the starting line as the windward mark is set above it, with a gate somewhere around the first third of the downwind that all the boats must pass between to make us a little bit closer. So there's a tiny bit of variation in that. I'm not sure how popular that course is going to be.
But then a longer, overall a longer run, and then finishing upwind through where the start line was. So we're in race 7, the second run down towards the finish, with Provetsa leading, complementing their second place in the previous race.
Yeah, Provetsa having a good day today. They were second place in the first race, now winning this race, but we're second before. Allegre had some problems with their kite. Looks like they either are having some issues on the Virtual Eye here, or they continue to struggle with their kite, as they're the only boat on starboard drive right now and have dropped back quite a bit on the distances there on Virtual Eye. I don't know what you're seeing out there, Jen, but are they having some problems still, or are they just not on the pace anymore?
I couldn't hear the name of which boat you said there, Nick.
Allegre.
Ah, thank you. We are on such the far opposite side of the course from Allegre, so I'm not able to make that call. For me, I think sled, with the earliest jibe here, jibing out to this right-hand side of the course, the side that's paid, at least on the last upwind, if not kind of on all the upwinds today, is really a good, strong position against Provetsa and Ron racing in front of them. I do think Provetsa probably will be able to hold them off, but I'm not sure if maybe sled, if they get one more extra little puff or one extra little righty, they might be able to kind of get a bite out of Ron racing. And they're going for their jibe at this current moment, so we'll be able to see that cross shortly. And I think while it looks like they might have made gains, it is definitely still Ron racing across the bow of sled on starboard, but Ron racing on port should be clear across. So the far side, though, Allegre, to my eye, yeah, they don't even seem to be in the mix with these three anymore.
Yeah, Allegre must be still having some issues with their kite, because definitely a nice right shift for all of these guys on the downwind. Not surprised to see them all on port in that right shift, but now starting to come back as they get closer and closer to ley line to the finish. So you see some little battles here. Azura getting jibed on by, I believe, Platoon. Gladiator going to come into the mix here pretty soon. Sled making gains on Ran Racing. Probably going to see Ran jibe. Yeah, here they go, jibing now just in front. Provetsa probably going to also defend by jibing here pretty soon. You know, Bernenasek out here, big losses on the upwind, so it might be taking a little bit more risk to make up for that. But definitely staying close here. The top 3 boats in their own little pack, and then the next 4 behind them with Brennenesec, Azura, Platoon, and Gladiator going to fight it out for those spots at the finish line. I can't quite see on virtual here, but what does that battle look like between Platoon, Azura, and Gladiator to you out there, Jen?
Platoon did slam Azura, forced Azura to jibe out one more time. Then Platoon's just decided to jibe themselves. So Gladiator still remains on port. Platoon coming out on starboard towards Azura. Azura is basically just face planted in front of Brennenesec, and they're in their own little private battle with the 2 of them. Brennenesec trying to take them high. Azura trying to defend high, I think, is allowing Platoon to actually get a bit of a distance and separation forward. So Platoon just parking their jibe now with about 2 boat lengths to Azura behind them, and Gladiators just jibed back, coming back into the mix with them. So we'll see if Gladiators made some gains on Platoon, or if Platoon's able to lead that pack of 4. But it is kind of the final time that they'll be on port tack. They are, no, that's incorrect. They will have to spend, the whole rest of the fleet will have to spend a little bit more time on port tack to get to the finish line here. They're all on starboard coming down towards the finish, but they're not laying. And Gladiator is planting that jibe on top of Platoon. And can they pull it off and affect them? I'm not sure yet. It looks like actually they've picked a really nice position to jibe there if they are trying to hurt Platoon. I don't see Platoon putting their bow down yet, though, so maybe Gladiator jibe just the tiniest bit too early. Maybe they're not actually affecting them.
Yeah, Gladiator are going to look to probably soak down in front of Platoon here, but looks like actually they're going to be close to laying. Otherwise, I would imagine that Azura would have jibed again away, but looks like a nice battle between Azura and Brennenesec back there. Can't see it quite on the virtual eye right now, but on the live feed, it looks like Quantum is gaining quite a bit on Platoon. Gladiator gaining quite a bit on Platoon.
It's going to be a tough one to call. It still is a very, very long period of time on this jibe. They probably have about 25 more boat lengths on starboard and maybe about 5 boat lengths on port. So if Gladiator's in this strong position here, they can affect Platoon's bad air much longer. They can affect Platoon with their bad air much longer than Platoon would be able to on the other jibe. So I think for Gladiator here, trying to roll down over the top of Platoon, trying to get into that 4th place position. The one question mark, of course, Allegre coming out from the left-hand side of the course. They have finally jibed back into the center here. They had, as we all said, kite problems on the kite set earlier, and then they just decided to split from the rest of the fleet. So they've been sailing their own little game over there, and I'm not sure they've got a decent angle coming back in now. I can't tell the separation though with the pack.
Yeah, last time we saw them on virtual, they were pretty far behind, but it does look like now they've made some gains coming back into the middle. Still behind for sure, but going to be close to the pack. Gladiator, Brennenesec, Azura, and Platoon all pretty close. So Allegra is going to be looking to get into part of some of that action. But so it looks like Platoon might have edged out in front of Gladiator now. So Gladiator not in quite as strong of a spot anymore. Now they're going to be looking more towards Azura and Brennenesec to make sure that they're going to stay ahead of them. I don't know what you are seeing out there, but Virtual High has Gladiator sailing a little bit off of the bad air of Platoon there, so a little bit too far back and a little bit too high to be making any real difference there. I think the live feed is showing us something a little bit different, but depth perception is always really hard with sailboat racing and the angles that we have here. So going to be a question mark to see how long these boats have left to sail on port jibe. I'm not sure that it's very long. They might be able to soak into the finish, but Jen, what does it look like out there for the finish line? Do we have a line bias? Is the pin end favored?
Not seeing the same pin end favor that we saw yesterday. I think, in fact, Provetza is probably straight into the finish line here with this extra pressure. They've come down about 5 degrees, maybe 7 over the last 20 boat lengths. They are easily crossing through into the lead. Already have the lead for the regatta, but Provetza with the lead in this race. The Turkish team, skippered by Peter Holmberg. Tactics, Tony Ray. You can see them coming across the line now with a wonderful. We've seen that wasn't led from the start at the top mark all the way around. Instead, they kind of did have to work for it there, and they are just crossing the finish line now for the lead of the race and to keep the lead overall. And as we said on board, they've got Nacho Postigo, the navigator, the wizard of Palma Bay. I think he's really shown why they call him the wizard over the last 2 days, being so consistent. Now in second place, crossing the line, bow number 3, dark black boat, Ron Racing, the Swedish team. They came into today at the top of the leaderboard. They dropped off of it after the last race, but this second place will put them back in the mix quite well, just behind Preveza. Will make them happy. Owner Nicholas Enstrom, the driver on board, will make him happy, I'm sure. Then in third place, crossing the line now, bow number 6, white-hulled, USA flagged sled. Helmsman and owner Takashi Okura driving the boat across the line there, with tactics done by Hamish Pepper and strategy by Cameron Dunn, and they had a perfectly tuned boat yesterday, both their boat speed and also their tactics and strategy and their starting, everything ultimately being the perfect package, as they got 2 bullets on the day. But they struggled a bit in the first race today, getting a podium finish there. Quite an amazing job. Now here for fourth, almost 4 boats are going to be coming into the finish line here on the tight fight. Allegre actually still leading from the inside, but having to jibe here, jibing with Platoon and Gladiator jibing on their air, and Azura coming in on the inside. In fact, I think Azura might nip all of them. Platoon has just rolled Allegre. Platoon definitely coming through, but Platoon on port tack and Azura on starboard. Starboard, you can hear being yelled on board Azura, while I cannot call that is too close. I think probably it was Platoon at the pin end of the line, just nipping Azura, while Allegre just gets Gladiator, and inside of Gladiator, Brenenasek, I think, might have been called in front of Gladiator as they crossed there. Perhaps it was the blue bowsprit ahead of the red bowsprit, but wow, that was a tight one. And across the line in 9th position, I feel like I need to breathe. Quantum Racing, what a tight battle there. I don't know how virtual I called it. I'm not sure if any of us can say for sure how those 4 boats crossing the line were. We'll have to listen to PRO Maria Terreo make that final call.
Yeah, it looked like those bottom boats there, Brenenasek and Azura, making really good gains right at the end, so they did call the ley line much better than the other boats, and not having to do that extra jibe at half a bow length is all that matters there, and, you know, made a difference between almost 3 points, I believe, for Brenenasek if they were able to squeak in front of all those guys. So definitely close. Allegra making it interesting by coming in again right at the last second there and sort of mixing it up, but very exciting downwind as per usual in this tight racing here in Palma, and again, we're going to be pretty tight on the leaderboard. I believe that Preveza is going to be in the lead now, but Rand coming back into the mix. I think they're in second. What do you have on the score sheet there, Andy?
Yep, I reckon that Preveza are leading on 26 points, Rand Racing now on 29, then third I think I have Platoon on 30, Sled on 31 and Azura on 32, but that's very, very provisional. But overall, a very strong day so far for Preveza, and a good comeback in that race by Rand Racing. I think Rand were around the top mark in 7th, made that big gain down the first run going left, and that got them up to 4th, and then just kept chipping away. And also a nice recovery from, or a nice gain for Sled, went round the top mark in 4th.
So it looks like Gazprom actually putting their jib back up. Looks like they're going to maybe have to sail back onto the course, take a penalty turn, and then finish again. So they will be last place in this race. Likely did not give enough room for Gladiator and Allegre to both fit in there at the pin end. So it does look like they are going to go back and take that penalty turn and finish up in last. So big loss for them, especially rounding that top mark, and I believe it was 3rd place.
That's right.
You know, nice little gain on the right, risky start again. But worked out for them. They made some good gains, tacking back early on the first upwind, getting back into the mix when they really should have been back in, 5th or 6th maybe, and then on the downwind, still rounding again in 3rd, but then taking a big risk by ducking the entire fleet on starboard to get out to the left side on the upwind, losing a lot there, and again taking another risk here at the downwind. It's going to cost them
a couple of points,
a last place finish here in this race. So. Pretty risky stuff by them. Not really sure where that's coming from, but certainly paid off for them in the first race of the day, and looked like it was going to pay off for them again. But maybe not so much now.
Anyway, loss of a couple of places. I think they finished or crossed the line in 7th, and that will drop them to 9th. And of course, the gains then to the boats which were 8th and 9th. So, but incredibly close racing, Jen. Just nip and tuck all the way around. Seems like if you can get your bow in front or in the top 2 round the top mark, then you have a good chance of winning. So Preveza then the strongest of the day so far with a 2 and a 1. Ran Racing fighting back nicely, but very tough day for Quantum Racing then, Nick.
Yeah, it looks like not really working out for them. You see them in an unusual spot on the starting line where they're sort of shut out by the rest of the fleets. That's not where they usually are. You see a lot of times that you know, the optical illusion of a sail and the striped boat in the middle of the course somewhere, a little bit more punched out than the rest of the boats, relying a lot on their speed and boat handling, which they know they're very confident in usually.
I think that really is the point of being able to rely on boat speed. Sometimes I think the whole fleet's moved up just a notch or 2 in the last regatta. Yeah, so not sure what's going on there. Maybe not quite comfortable with the conditions or something like that, but definitely not feeling that same confidence with the speed and boat handling that they're used to. So Jenny, you have an interesting guest who was sailing on board, I think, Alegre in the previous race.
Yeah, so we are joined today by Ben Meyer. He was on board with Alegre in race 1, which I think unfortunately wasn't the best race for them. They were leading this race at points, but what was it like for you coming from freestyle skiing to then get to experience this sort of high-level professional sailing?
Well, it's something completely different, right? I mean, we're both professional athletes. Like they're in a team, so it's a little bit different than to my sport, where it's just comes down to what I do. But it was amazing because it's such a technical sport, and there's so much more than just your physical ability, and just stuff to read the ocean, the wind, and all that. And it was amazing. It was just amazing to watch those guys catch the best winds.
And in a lot of ways, I mean, as you just said, it is about reading the water, about reading the wind, but also there's physical elements on board. What did you think of what you saw, say, of the grinders or of the guys who had to move the sails around?
Well, the grinders are big guys, and then you have the tactical guys who just tell the guys where to go, what they have to do. They're commandos, and then I had one commando where I had to run from one side to another. I tried to do that on point, so that was amazing. And yeah, it was just good fun. I think they didn't have too much luck with me. They did better in the second race. I think they became 5th. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was such a tight battle at the end. We're still waiting for a confirmation from the race officer exactly how tight it was. It was so close.
Yeah, no, it was good to watch, and they're my team now.
So did they take care of you on board as well? I mean, it sounds like you really enjoyed the racing, but did they tell you what was going on beforehand?
Yeah, they were super nice. I mean, they were all pretty chill. Like, they didn't seem too stressed, and maybe it's just they didn't want to show me how stressed they are, but no, it was good, and they explained everything, what's going on and stuff. And then before the race, obviously not during the race, because during the race everyone is in their zone and just doing their work. And yeah, it was good to watch and see what positions there are, what you have to do, when you have to do something, and man, anytime again.
So is sailing your new sport then? Are you sticking with skiing?
I will stick with skiing, but I mean, there's summertime too, so I'll jump on the sailboat then, hopefully, more often now.
Exactly. And what better place to enjoy the summertime than here in Puerto. Benny, thanks so much. Glad we got you out on the water. Back to you guys in the studio, Andy.
Thanks very much indeed, Jen. We'll join you again very shortly. I think we should go into the third race of the day. Benny Meyer, then 3 times free ride champion. In 2010, 2011 and I think 2012. Started sailing only I think 3 weeks ago in a 49er, sailed in a J70, and now out there in the 52 Super Series enjoying a ride on board Alegre. I think we're going to take a short break now. We're going to wait for race 3, and also we're going to just quickly show the leaderboard overall. Hopefully it's coming right up, and Preveza then on 25 points, Ran Racing on 29, so 4-point lead for Preveza going to this third race of the day. Platoon in third on 30 points, Sled 31, Azura 32, Quantum Racing on 34, so dropping down leaderboard. And Brunello, remember they were up to second going into this morning, now dropping to 7th, Gladiator in 8th and Alegre on 9th. So Preveza have the upper hand just now. Ran Racing come back nicely with that second place, and Platoon pretty steady there. Look at that, 2, 3, 4, 4. for Platoon over the last 4 races. Join us again very, very shortly as we go into race number 3 of the day and the penultimate day of this regatta here in Puerto.